Everyone has experienced a bad interview, but to be honest, terrible interview questions are way more common than they need to be. Now, I'm on a personal mission to eradicate bad job interviews from the face of the earth. So, to start off with, I'm going to talk about 3 interview questions I absolutely hate that I really want you to stop using, and some other questions to ask instead, and what to look for in your candidates' answers. Hi, I'm Leah Olson. I'm a professional recruiter and the founder of HowToHire.com, where you learn to confidently hire great people for your team. Well, if you're watching this video, I'm going to assume that you care about conducting good quality interviews, but most of all, you want to hire the right people for your team. So that means that we need to be using good quality interview questions so that you can get some information about each and every candidate that you talk to make a good hiring decision that's based on evidence, not emotion. For that reason, I'm going to go through 3 interview questions that I absolutely hate. I want you to stop right now using these interview questions. You never have to use them again. What I'm going to do is show you why you shouldn't use them and talk about some alternative questions and what to be looking for when you get answers from your candidates. The first question is probably the most common interview question of all time. So, tell me about yourself. Now, a lot of people use a question like this as an opener in an interview because they want to get the candidate warmed up, get them talking. The problem becomes there's no parameters given to the candidate. You're just open-ended, asking them to tell you, all about themselves. So a really, really good prepared communicator could probably offer you a concise and compelling career story. But for the most part, you're probably going to get a 10-minute random life story, or you could even get that deer in headlights look. It's just not a really good way to start off an interview. So if you do want to get a little bit more about the person's story and get them talking, I'm going to recommend that you use this question instead. In about 3 minutes, could you give me the Reader's Digest or summary version of your career story? Now, the reason that this works better is because you've given them a time limit, which you said 3 minutes, and also you've given them some parameters. You want their career story. Now, obviously, you couldn't use this with entry-level candidates. This is a question that you're going to use with, I'd recommend with candidates who have around 8 to 10 years or more of career experience. But the nice thing about this is that once they get talking about their career, the steps they've taken in their career, the moves they've made, if they made, moved different jobs or got promotions or things like that, is you can be looking for in their answers some common threads that go through their career story. Maybe they're always making decisions based on family needs, so you see that they have really strong family values. Maybe they're always trying to get more in education, more certifications, more credentials. Maybe they're very driven by that. Maybe they're simply always looking for more money. And so maybe they're driven more by money and they're looking for raises. And none of these things are really good or bad. It's just going to tell you a little bit more about that person and the motivations behind their career moves. Well, the second question that I hate is actually a category of questions that I like to call weird psychological questions. They're things like, if you could be any animal, what would you be? Or, if you were any type of cereal, what would you be and why? I think the real question here is how, if you're asking these questions, candidates aren't getting up, running, screaming from the interview, because they're totally weird and totally out of place in a professional job interview. I think sometimes in conducting interviews, we all get this feeling like we suddenly need to become clinical psychologists and ask all these in-depth personality questions. Well, just stop right there. I'm not a clinical psychologist and neither are you. Well, unless you actually are one, in which case, good for you. But most of us aren't. So we just need to stop. We're neither qualified to formulate these kinds of questions, nor are we qualified to actually evaluate the answers. So we need to quit using them. The better alternative to this kind of weird psychological question is to ask questions that are going to reveal a person's personality, a little bit about their personality in relation to their work. Very important point. Relate it to their work. So reveal a little bit about their personality in relation to their work, but maybe also see how self-aware they are. So for example, what I am going to suggest that you use is a question like this. How would your coworkers describe you? Now, this is just a really simple question, but what you're going to look for is how self-aware they are. What they think people think of them. It's going to tell a little bit, it's going to allow them to be introspective. It's going to tell a little bit about their personality. So how would people describe you? Are you extroverted? Are you creative? Are you quiet? Are you hardworking? Are you diligent? Things like that. So that's going to tell you a little bit about their personality. It's probably going to tell you a little bit about maybe some of their weaknesses or some of their strengths. And it'll probably also reveal some work situations or stories that you could dive into a little bit deeper to get even more information. So it's a way better question to ask than those weird psychological ones, because otherwise you're never going to know what to do with the answers. And finally, another question I absolutely hate. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? And look, I understand that you might want to talk to somebody about their long-term goals. And as an employer, you're probably really hoping that if you're going through all of this fuss to recruit someone and all of the expense to train them, that they're going to stick around for a long time. But the truth is, in this day and age, people's tenure with companies is much shorter than it was for, our moms and dads and our grandmas and grandpas. People are just not staying with companies for 20, 30 or 40 years like they used to. So I think as employers, we really need to be realistic about how long people are going to stay with us. And when we're realistic with ourselves and we think, okay, probably this person's going to work for me for 2 or 3 or 5 years. So then the focus is going to become, how can they hit the ground running? What skills do they offer now? How can I get them up to speed quickly? And then if they like it here and they want to stay, how can I help them to grow in the organization? Okay? So here's what I'm going to offer you as an alternative question. What skills do you think that you bring that would make you capable of doing this job on day one? This shifts the focus from long-term goals and theoretical career moves to what can they do right now? If they started tomorrow, what could they do to make an impact immediately? And really that's what's important. Now, you want to make sure that you're training someone properly, that you're offering opportunities for advancement. But ultimately, you have a job that needs to be done right now, and so you need somebody who can do that job and bring skills to the table. If you do want to spend a little time in the interview talking about long-term goals, that's absolutely fine. But if you do, I'd suggest you use a question a little bit more like this. What goals do you have? And do you think this job will lead you to achieving your long-term goals? That opens it up as somebody, sees themselves maybe eventually getting an advanced degree or doing something a little bit different. They might be willing to share with you some of their longer-term goals. And then in your mind, you can think, well, realistically, this person's going to be with me for X amount of time. And that could weigh in to your hiring decision as you compare different candidates. Okay? Now, it's their prerogative if they're going to share a lot of information with you, but it does offer an opportunity to see if a person is thinking long-term, if they have some long-term goals, and how that might fit in to what you guys do in your business. Another thing is that when you go to offer someone a job, if it's someone who's very talented that you really want for your team, And you can go back to what their goals are and you can make that connection for them. You can say, hey, I know this is what you want to do in the long term. We're going to be able to offer you those kinds of opportunities. Okay, well, thanks so much for watching. I really enjoyed talking to you about the job interview questions I hate. And I really hope that the suggestions I've given will help you as you interview new people for your team. So be sure to subscribe though, because over the next few weeks, I'm going to have all kinds of videos all about interviewing, and we're going to talk about some other topics related to interviewing. So definitely hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a thing. Also, I encourage you to visit my website, howtohire.com, where you can immediately get my guide to interviewing like a boss. I'd love to send that to you. Well, thanks so much again for watching. I'm Leah Olson, and remember, you are a job creator. Now, let's go find the right people for those jobs together.